I knew it was something I wanted to do very early on, but I didn't get serious about it early on. You know what I mean? So I mean, that's two different things.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of people who grew up like we did, was like always super into movies, right? Like I was always just really into them, loved them. I was maybe more into movies and pop culture than like I found a lot of my friends around me. But but I was always super into them. But I never thought about it as a career or anything like that. But then once I got into high school, um, my high school had a film class, which at that time was very unique. Like that wasn't common in high schools in Toronto at the time. Um, and even before but I wasn't allowed to take the film class until grade 12. But before that, I was allowed to take media classes, and then in those media classes, we would make like little fun videos and stuff like that, and started to get me into it. You know what I mean? I still didn't think, oh, I want to make films, but I started to get like into the process and start to develop an understanding of like how you film different pieces and edit them together. It started to demystify things essentially a little bit for me throughout that process. But like also during that time, this was the time like Pulp Fiction came out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the whole like 90s indie boom started to happen around the time I was in high school. And I remember being too young to get into Pulp Fiction, but some older friends snuck me in. And I remember seeing that in the theater and it kind of like really blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And then obviously that sent me down the Tarantino rabbit hole, right? I remember renting Reservoir Dogs like the next day, seeing True Romance, and then that parlayed into like El Mariachi and seeing like Robert Rodriguez story, and then it just started to really open up a lot for me. And around that time too, I saw Clockwork Orange for the first time because that was one of those posters that always freaked me out growing up. Like I remember
Me
seeing it as a
too.
kid and
Yeah.
seeing it in the video store, and it was always kind of like freaky to me, and it weirded me out. And I remember around that time finally seeing it and it having like a real impact on me because it was one of the first times where and it was a time when my mind was open to it because Pulp Fiction was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, so movies don't have to be like everything I see. They can be
Right.
different. They can, even though Pulp Fiction obviously he's pulling from a million different things, but in a way that's so unique to him, right? And
Mhm.
and when you're like 15 years old, you don't get that, right? You don't know all of the obscure references at that time. But it really started to open my mind to like, wow, okay, like a person did this. You know what I mean? And a person can do
Yeah.
things different. And then seeing Clockwork Orange really made me think, oh, like there's like an author to this. This is like, it didn't feel just like a studio. It felt like literally like it was so unique, so different. Whether you like the movie or not, it just felt like something different, and it had a real impact on me.
Mhm.
And then finally, around that time, I took that film class in high school, and in that film class, this teacher, it was mostly theory. Because this is like in the VHS high eight days, right? So it's not like there's mini DV cameras where it's like easy to. I mean, that's a whole separate story, but like he started to open me up and the class up to like Canadian cinema, independent cinema, like beyond just what was becoming popular, and international cinema. And so all of this stuff was happening at the same time. And it was really opening my mind to cinema. But one of the things he did too is you had to make a short film in the class and you had to make it with
Oh,
friends. And it's not like they gave you much, but he gave you like foundational, like he taught us some foundational stuff. But he was essentially just go out and make a movie to the class. If you want to partner up with people, do it. If you want to do it on your own, do it, like whatever. And me and my buddy Rajiv, we partnered up with a couple buddies of ours who had done it the year before. So they knew a bit more about it, and we made a short film together, and it was so much fun. It was like the first project I ever took like insanely serious at school. We made a little gangster movie. It was called Retribution.
oh, you still remember the
And
name? Okay. Is it
of
still
course,
around? Can we watch it
it's
somewhere?
not online anywhere. I hope it's
Oh,
not
okay.
online anywhere. Like we're all in it, and it's pretty rough to look at. It's shot in in VHS. But dude, we took it so seriously. We put all our friends in it, and like I remember once we got into editing, like put it into black and white. We're like making shots in slow motion, like we thought we were John Woo all of a sudden, playing all
Yeah.
this like amazing hip hop tracks over it, and like it was so fucking, pardon the swearing, it was so awesome. And
Yeah.
I remember showing it in the class, and like it was just like heads and tails more fun to watch than anyone else's. You know what I mean? It was fun and exciting,
Okay.
and ended up getting to a point where like people we were screening it over and over again for people in the school. Like everyone wanted to watch it. And there would be like crowds. And like wherever we could get like a TV and a VCR to play it, like it would be like crowds in the library, right? Or like in the cafeteria, like we'd play it for everyone. And we ended up making another one here for the guys. It was the
All
same thing.
right, all
Like
right. So now you're
everyone
that
loved
guy.
it wasn't just me, it was me and my friends, and we were doing it
Okay.
together. And so again, all this stuff was perfect timing, right? Like, like I'm experiencing this stuff, having fun. And that was the big thing. I was having fun. It was something I was doing where I was enjoying myself. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, mind you, already, but I was having a lot of fun because like I was doing it with my friends. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's something I still carry with me to today. But like I was with friends, I was hanging out, having a great time, just making stuff with my friends. And that's like really all it came down to. And like that completely demystified the process for me. That was when I was just like, oh, okay, like regular human beings can do this and like have fun doing it and do something entertaining. Like I had no thoughts of like Hollywood or anything like that, but I was just like, maybe this is something that can happen. So that's when I started to like seriously think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But out of high school, like I didn't go to university right away or anything. I actually lived in England for a little while. I even took some acting classes and stuff like that, just to like, just do stuff, you know what I mean? But I didn't like try and get an agent or anything like that. It was just doing stuff while I was living there, right? And then a buddy of mine wanted to make an indie movie in Toronto. He wanted to just do the Robert Rodriguez thing. I remember when I was in England, I read the Rebel Without a Crew book, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, anyone can do this. Like this is
Yeah, me
great.
too. I
It's like
read
the
that book
best
too.
book ever, man." And
Yeah.
it's funny. I met him like a few years ago, finally, and I
Yeah.
was just like, I told him, I'm like, "Man, like you changed my life with this book." Yeah, I don't think you realize it. And he just looked at me. He's like, "I'm sorry, but like, but
That's
come to
funny.
this other like workshop I'm doing. Like it's because it was at South by Southwest at one of like the filmmaker get-togethers." And
Okay.
he's like, I'm doing this workshop about this new. Anyway, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But it was
Mm-hmm.
incredible to actually meet him because that book did really alter the course of my life. But a buddy of mine was making an indie movie. He's like, "Man, come down, let's do it together, man. I can get some investment from some family, and let's just like let's rock and roll. Let's do this." I was like, okay. Like I had nothing else going on. Like I was no plans to go to university at that point. Like no, I had no plans. Like I said, like I didn't get serious about anything for a little while. And then, but I was like, this sounds awesome. So I came down and we're gonna like, he got some money from family. He bought like an XL1. We're like, we didn't know the difference between like, we just thought digital. Like we didn't realize that like we weren't educated because like we knew Star Wars was being shot on some digital cameras, but like we didn't know the difference between like George Lucas using these huge HD cameras versus like mini DV. We were just like, oh, this is digital cameras, this should work. But anyway, we got an XL1 and we started shooting. We spent like an entire summer, dude, like just shooting like pieces of this feature script, and ultimately we never finished it because we were just, I mean, we were kids, we weren't serious, we were all over the place. But the good thing that came from it though is that like it did give us a lot of reps, man, of just like shooting stuff and like figuring things out. And man, like even though the film was never finished, like some of the scenes we shot were pretty cool, man. Like they were pretty wild, pretty interesting. Like I know people have seen some of the footage years later. It's not me who has it, it's my friend Pasha who has it all. And he's shown it to people, and people have been like, man, you should do something out of this, because there is some actually like legitimately interesting stuff. Like we were just kids, free and like really experimenting. And it gave me a lot of reps of just shooting, being around, working with people, how collaborate. Everyone was way more experienced than me, and just like it gave me maybe a bit more confidence going into things than I should have had because of that. But it did get, because I didn't do anything good. It's not like I came out of that experience with something I could show people, but it at least really got me more comfortable with the process of putting scenes together and stuff like that. And I met a lot of people, and through that I started actually volunteering on other sets, like even though I wasn't in school, I would go on other student film sets with people I'd met, and like I would like be a camera assistant, and that's just stuff shot on film then too, right? So I would like load film cameras, or like change lenses, set up tripods, set up lights, do whatever.